We're ready for match number 1, featuring Vice Grips and the Hoinky Classic team. And starting off for Vice Grips will be Brad Hunter. Hunter, the oldest competitor here today, and he's just 31 years old.
Well, this is the kind of start you'd kind of expect. You're getting started with the cameras on, and the first 5 frames of for each team is going to be a little bit of a nerve-wracking situation here. He leaves a 2-4-5, not a difficult spare in most cases, but the lane condition here is such that it's a very testy condition, and you better make good shots. So spares are the key. We have to fill frames, and this is how we start out right here. Tough spare basically out of the gate.
Oh, and he clips it. Does not get the 5 pick. So an open frame for Vice Grips right out of the chute.
Well, here's another look at that shot, and he did everything basically the way he wanted to. Threw it hard and straight at it, and you can see the ball turns over just at the end, just enough to chop the 2-pin off the 5. And a tough start for Vice Grips.
Now John Murph. Murph, who is a student, the '93 collegiate national champion. Talk about tough spares.
Well, this is the washout, the 1-2-4-10, and the idea here is to get the ball on the left side of the head pin. The ball will take out the 2 and the 4, and the head pin will go over to the 10 and kick it out, hopefully. That's the idea, but not an easy spare. Lane condition, I said, is a kind of a difficult condition, and we'll talk about that later as far as the scoring goes and such, but all these players are used to it now. They have a pretty good idea of how to play it. Right now, it's more nerves than anything else, I think, Dave.
Well, we're dead even now. Each team with an open in the first frame. John Murph and Brad Hunter do not get a mark in the first frame. Again, this is a Baker format, which means that each member of the 5-member team will bowl 2 frames. You see the number 27 here on Brad Davidson Jr. That means he'll bowl the 2nd and 7th frames. Crossing over. Vice Grips, the local favorite here out of Grapevine, Texas. And that'll be Mark Dyson for Hoinky Classic. Dyson, a throwback with his style, isn't he?
Well, he has, you see he wears that big wrist support, and he doesn't do a lot to the bowling ball. His idea is to keep it in play, be very accurate, leave spares that are makeable like the 10-pin, and he very seldom will make a mistake on the lane as far as missing a spare.
Dyson 27 is a league average of 225.
Switches balls, going across the lane here. You throw it hard and straight.
And a spare for Hoinky Classic in the 2nd. Well, let's see if Vice Grips can double. This is a 2-game match. Take total pins for the 2 games to move on to the next round. For David Smith.
Well, everybody comes back shaking their head just a little bit, kind of feeling like they're not getting the ball reaction you want. And here's a guy that's moved deeper into the lane, playing between the 4th and 5th arrows, gets it out into what almost is called the no man's land, which is outside the 2nd arrow. The ball just will not hook back from there. So if you're going to play deep in the middle of the lane, you have to go a little harder and a little straighter with it. You can't trust it to come back if you give it a lot of room. 1-2-4-8. Try to hit it on the left side of the head pin. The ball will do all the work for you going down the line. Got to hurry.
Oh, it does. Oh, he got lucky.
Just enough. I think if he had to do it over again, he'd probably not try to do it quite that way.
But the spare nonetheless for Vice Grips following a strike. Now John Gaines for Hoinky.
John is a good case in point on how a big man can play this game extremely well. He's very light on his feet. Gets to the foul line with extremely good balance and gets a lot of rotation on the ball.
Like that.
Like that.
Oh, a strike for Hoinky. John Gaines had been hitting leadoff for Hoinky throughout much of the earlier rounds, but now they moved him to the number 3 spot. And number 49 now for Vice Grips is Scott Southwick.
Scott's got to get it going for this team, and he's the guy to do it. This is a guy that usually can keep the ball in the pocket area, and he's the guy that sets it up for the anchor man. So he needs to throw a strike here to get his team started. And he leaves a very tough spare, the 210. Just didn't quite get it back to the pocket. And I feel Heath was comfortable with that shot. He didn't get the ball reaction he wanted. And now, as I mentioned, he has a very tough spare. He wants to hit the left side of the 2-pin, have it slide into the 10. All these guys, as you mentioned, very young, all in their early 20s to mid 20s, except for a couple. And for some of them, not much experience on television.
Oh boy, oh, almost. Well, let's take a look at the Hoinky Classic lineup, brought to you by Contour Power Grips, the pioneers of the finger grip industry. More pros choose Contour Power Grips, and you should too. And there they are: John Murph, Mike Dice, Mark Dyson, John Gaines, we've already seen. Now up Steve Kloempken, and then Chris Barnes. A lot of people very familiar with those last two fellows.
Very experienced, very talented amateur players. They have a lot of titles on the amateur side to their credit, and you'll see why very shortly.
Kloempken and Barnes, members of Team USA. And that's one of the reasons.
That's one of the reasons. They can both make great shots, and we're going to take another look at his style. And here he's playing out toward the edge of the lane, out near the second arrow, basically. But you can see the classic style, the good approach, the great balance, the shoulder over the knee, and he'll stay in that position. He doesn't come up when he releases the ball. He stays there, and you can see the elbow come straight up through the shot, and that means he didn't quit on it.
Tony Franklin now. Boy, everything is coming up light for vice grips right now.
Well, you and I, we've done a lot of these, Dave, and it seems like over the years we've learned one thing that's important. We're bowling on 2 lanes here, Don Carter All-Star lanes, and one lane is almost invariably completely different than the other for some reason. The players practice on them. They change them by how they roll the bowling ball. And here we see another open for the vice grip team. But as they roll the bowling balls down the lane, it moves the oil around, changes the shot pattern. So one lane could be completely different and more difficult than the other. And we've seen a lot of matches turn around. A 40, 50 pin lead after the first game can change dramatically somewhere halfway through the second game.
Now here's Chris Barnes, the 93 Collegiate Bowler of the Year. Also a member of Team USA.
We want to take a look at Chris's style too when we get an opportunity. It's not unique, but it's a little more difficult to bowl the way Chris bowls. Here he leaves the 3-6, and he's kind of surprised at the ball reaction. And that's probably a little bit more nerves than anything else.
You mentioned lane conditions, Earl, and Chris was telling us that it has been that way throughout this competition, that the left lane much easier to line up on than the right in every pair they bowl.
Well, see, he didn't tell me that. You know more about it than I do. Here's another look at Chris shooting the spare now. Chris's style is a little different, and like I said, when we get an opportunity, we'll show that to you.
Well, right now it's Hoinky Classic with the lead. Hoinky Classic on top. They winning right now in this first game. But in this first game, Hoinky Classic has right now been pretty dominant through the first half of this game. They lead by 32. So vice grip's going to have to make up some ground here, and Brad Hunter now bowling in the 6th frame.
Got the big break there, Dave. Hit the middle of the head pin, left only the 6 pin, and it could have been a lot worse. Maybe the 4 and the 7 with it. An easy spare here. You see the deep breath, the sigh of relief, basically. Easy spare for a bowler of Brad's talent. They have to get something started, as you mentioned. More important than anything is to fill frames. They've missed a lot of spares.
Well, if indeed the conditions are easier on the right than the left this time, which would be unusual according to Chris Barnes, that's going to make it doubly tough on vice grips in game 2.
Well, maybe Chris was using a little gamesmanship there, so he didn't want you to pass that information on to the other teams.
I'm not a spy. John Murph.
Good adjustment there by John. I remember early on, in the first frame, he had missed the head pin to the right. Made a good adjustment there. Went a little more direct with the ball, a little more end over end roll. Watch his hand stay pretty much under the ball this time instead of rotating around it. And this is what gets the ball farther down the lane without it hooking early. Look at the rotation. So he kept it on line better, a little more ball speed, and a much better shot. Spare here will keep the lead at 32. Unfortunately, that's his last shot on this lane. So now that he knows where to play this lane, it's all over with.
He almost missed the 4-pin.
Quickly through the format, this is again the World Team Challenge Championship here at Don Carter All-Star Lanes, and the idea is we bowl all 77 teams bowled 6 regular team games, total pins determines whether you make it into the match play portion, which are the top 10 teams. The pinfall carries over. They bowl 9 2-game Baker matches. If each game you win is worth 15 bonus pins. And if you win the match, which is total pins for the 2 games, you win another 20 bonus pins. The top 3 teams that you see here today were the leaders out of that 10-team category. And again, the pinfall carried all the way over until you got to the telecast. Telecast, we start all over. 2 games, total pins, wins the match. The winner goes to Reno for the World Team Challenge World Championships.
I'm glad you got all that straightened out. Oh, boy.
Oxygen. I need oxygen.
Well, Vice Grips with yet another open frame. They're 3rd in this first game.
Well, they're really defeating themselves.
Yeah.
You're right, Dave. They're beating themselves, and a team as talented as the Hoinke Classic team is not going to let them up if they keep doing this. This team, once it gets loose, is going to get going. When you got people like, of course, we've already mentioned Steve Kloempken and, of course, Chris Barnes. This is a very strong team. So Vice Grips cannot continue to dig their own grave, you might say.
And Mark Dyson crossing over for the strike. The lead is now 45 for Hoinke Classic.
Spares. It's all spares. We've said so many times, fill frames, fill frames. The lane condition here, we're bowling on brand new Brunswick pins, and lane condition is 35 feet of dressing with a little heavier oil pattern in the middle of the lane, up to about 12 units out near the edge of the lane, and maybe 20 in the center. So there is some help. If you make good shots, you get a good ball reaction. You make mistakes, you pay for it. And there was one of those mistakes right there. Washout.
The Contour Power Grip starting lineup brought to you by the pioneers of the finger grip industry: Brad Hunter, Brad Davidson Jr., then David Smith, Scott Southwick, and Tony Franklin, the anchor.
Another tough spare for the Vice Grip team. It's the washout, and the ball actually rolled out for him. Had the 1, 2, 8, 10, left the 1 and the 10.
Oh boy, 4 open frames now for Vice Grips. When you are bowling and you're Hoinke Classic right now with this dominant lead, do you even pay much attention to what Vice Grips is doing and the problems they're having?
Well, you have to. You don't maybe want to, because you don't want to get that attitude in your mind that lane is that difficult. But you got to start wondering, why are these guys not bowling better? You know, you've watched them bowl all week, and they didn't get here by bowling poorly. They're in the, they qualified 2nd, so they must be a pretty good ball club. And they're really struggling on the left-hand lane, which has to be a surprise to the Hoinke team. And right now, what should be uppermost in their mind is to make good shots, fill frames, and just continue to build on the lead, because you don't know when this Vice Grip team might wake up and start stringing strikes.
John Gaines straightens it out and converts the spare in the 8th frame. 57 pins now the lead for Hoinke Classic. Boy, 57 pins. That's going to be quite a hill for Vice Grips to climb.
Well, Vice Grips right now is bowling embarrassed. They're starting to think, boy, we got to do something just to break 120 here. We need a couple of marks. But they're never out of the match, believe me. If you've watched this before, folks, you realize that anything can happen. There's another open, 4, 6, 7. My.
You talk about when it goes bad, it's really going bad right now for Vice Grips. So high game, Plano Super Bowl rolled a 11-19 earlier. Hoinke Classic and an 11-02. Ebonite, our top qualifier, was right there along with Vice Grips. Vice Grips never fell below 3rd place in any of the qualifying rounds and are the number 2 qualifier. See the high game out of Houston, Lacey Phillips with a 280 and Tom Holt at 278. And another strike for Hoinke Classic, Steve Kloempken. And that lead continues to build. Boy, 68, that's going to be really tough for Vice Grips.
You know, people like Steve Kloempken and, of course, Chris Barnes are products of not only the USA team, but of great coaching. They received some outstanding coaching from some very good coaches, and it shows in their game and their ability to make good shots under pressure, because they have good fundamentals. And if you have good fundamentals, you're going to make good shots when you need to make them. And there's another shot that completely got away from the Vice Grip team here. And Tony Franklin, of course, much better player, and so are, of course, the rest of his team than they're showing right now. And right now, they're fighting an embarrassing situation.
They really are. Boy, needed to convert that to get over 120.
Well, they are at least being good sports about it. They're playing up to the crowd a little bit, and you see they're smiling, and they're not out of this match. They really aren't. As dismal as it may look right now, possible 128 here with a strike, which is a terrible game. But of course, Vice Grips, even at that, is only about 70 pins behind in this match, and we've seen 70 pins turn around before.
They sure have.
And that's if they mark in the 10th for the Hoinke team. Chris Barnes, of course, very seldom doesn't mark, but anything can happen.
Well, you mentioned the good coaching. Fred Borden, of course, with Team USA, and Gordon Vatican, his collegiate coach at Wichita State.
Right, and look at this release. Right at the bottom of the release, the ball comes out of the hand. Very unique release. I've only seen one top player, one other player of Chris's caliber with that kind of a release, and that was Larry Lobb, who was in the PBA Hall of Fame. But he gets rid of the ball right at the bottom of his swing, which is very unique. Most players get rid of it slightly on the upswing, which projects the ball down the lane better. They get more lift and, of course, more leverage. Chris just overpowers the lane. We're going to take a look at, watch where the ball comes off his hand. It comes off his hand right at the foul line. He never gets the ball out in front of him, but he just dominates the lane. See, it's gone already, and the ball is just right at the bottom of the swing. But he's so strong and has such a tremendously long and powerful arm swing that he can force the ball down the lane.
Well, it was all Hoinke Classic in game number 1. Remember, there is a game number 2 as Hoinke Classic wins this first one by 66. We'll be back with game 2 in just a moment.
Team Vice Grips. Remember how many balls they had that didn't get back to the head pin? His first ball, he played a little straighter, a little tighter line, crossed over.
Important for Vice Grips to get off to a good start, isn't it?
Definitely. And,
that's not the way to do it.
That's not the way to do it. They're really struggling right now. If anything is bothering them, it's their mental. Right now, their mental aspects of the game are hurting because they've lacked confidence. They have to be feeling like nothing's going right for us. It's embarrassing the way we're bowling. If they could just get a few lucky breaks, carry a Brooklyn, or at least this is a difficult spare, the 3-6-10, pick up your spares. No more errors. That's a good start.
It is a good start. Brad Hunter with the spare. What did you do? I mean, you're not always at the top of your game every time you go out and bowl or do anything. What do you do mentally to get yourself back on track when you're struggling?
Well, when you're struggling, what I would do is regardless of what the lane condition was like, I would throw at least one ball. Of course, this is a difficult format. You only get 2 chances to help your team. But I would throw at least one ball in my favorite angle. Whether it would be, the lane condition might be that I have to play the 4th arrow, but I would play the 2nd arrow, say, which is my favorite angle. Throw one ball there just to get my timing, my feel, my rhythm. And then I had confidence that I could make a good shot, and then I'd go back to the shot that the lane condition called for. It was worth wasting one shot, regardless of the outcome, rather than bowl a whole game with no confidence and no rhythm, no feel.
Well, there might be
there's
slight opening.
There's 12 pins of that 70-pin lead, or 60. Did you say 66?
66, yeah.
The guy that's given us the numbers over here is and knows how to keep score pretty well is a fellow left-hander and a 6-time Professional Bowling Association champion, Hugh Miller. And if anybody ought to know how to keep score, it ought to be Hugh. He's won enough times.
Get someone overqualified for the job, don't we?
Yes, we do. But he works cheap.
Hey, maybe Vice Grips is going to get something going here. Brad Davidson with the strike following the spare.
See, I knew Chris Barnes lied to you. The right lane's easier.
And now John Gaines coming off an open frame for Hoinke.
Well, they can't get lazy. Hoinke is a tremendous advantage. One game to pick up 66 pins it sounds almost impossible, but it can be done. So they can't get lazy. They can't get careless. If they do, a few opens could get the Vice Grip team really pumped up. And if that happens, we got a whole new game. And there we go. See, now he's confused. Remember, his leadoff man crossed over the ball, and so they're thinking, well, his ball hooked. I got to give it a little room. His ball doesn't come back. The washout, the 1-2-4-10. So much of this game is confidence in your ball reaction. If you believe the ball's going to do such a thing, then you make a better shot. You have confidence in the release. Another open.
It's 2 in a row now for Hoinke, and they're allowing Vice Grips to get back in this match.
Well, a strike here, and they're back in the match. Simple as that. If they strike right here, they're back in the match. So this is a big shot. There it is.
A double for Vice Grips. They have cut the lead down to 44. So they have already taken 20 off the first game lead for Hoinke, and we are heading to the fourth frame in a moment.
When sports cream, when
for them.
Here we go again. The 2-8-10. This is nigh on to an impossible spare here. And the idea here is you have to hit the. Here's another look at that shot. Watch the ball gets out into that no man's land. It doesn't pick up any traction. Slides by the head pin. And again, the 2-8-10. And the only possible way to pick this up is to throw really a reverse hook, almost like a left-hander's hook, into the 2-pin and have it kick the 10 out. I don't know what Chris's plans are. He might just throw it hard and hope it bounces out of the pit. He's going to hook it a lot and see what happens.
He got the 2-8 part of it, but he left that 10 pin, which was almost impossible to convert, and another open frame for Hoinke Classic. And again, that door just a little bit ajar now for Vice Grips.
Well, Hoinke's got to be thinking, now what are we going to do, folks? I mean, we've got 3 opens and 5 shots.
Only one there, came up light.
You can hear the crowd, as you mentioned, Dave. This is the local team, the Vice Grip team, being from just down the road here, and they are the crowd favorites. Right now, the crowd is saying, is hoping that you can also hear it in the back of the booth here. They're just, come on, guys, get into this.
Can't afford any more open frames, Vice Grips.
Nope. No more open frames. No more mistakes.
Down just 35, so they knocked 30 pins off of that lead in the first 5 frames.
Well, actually, what happened is Hoinke Classic gave them 35 pins in the first 5 frames, much as Vice Grips did in the first game. By giving them the 66-pin lead, just basically gave it to them. 194 isn't a dominant game. The lead by 66. That's a lot of pins.
That's a good ball. John Murph made the adjustment. Remember, he crossed over for his strike in the first frame. Let's see if Brad Hunter can answer for Vice Grips. Just the 4.
Well, he made an excellent shot, and they can't afford any mistakes. They have to throw some strikes. It's coming down to the last few frames here, and it's up to Vice Grips really to take charge. Here's another look at that last shot. As you can see, he's playing between the 3rd and 4th arrows toward the center of the lane. Ball going approximately 50 feet down the lane before it picks up the roll, and leaves only the 4-pin. Easy spare, cross lane, but don't get careless. Fill frames.
Ooh, hang on, he does. And Brad Hunter with the spare in the 6th frame. The lead 36 for Hoinke Classic. And they hang on to it. We'll come back and find out in just a moment.
When do they add the quality to Lynn shoes? When do they add the quality to Lynn shoes? It's
with Tony Franklin. Tony, you guys dug a gigantic hole. Do you see a possibility of climbing out here?
Oh, yeah, you never know. I mean, this is a funny game. Never can tell. I get a couple of hits here. We're going to be right with them, so hopefully we will.
They believe, Dave.
Well, they should. They've made up already 30 pins in this game. They have just 3 frames to go, though. They're going to need to string some strikes together. They just got a strike in the 7th frame from David Smith, or excuse me, from Brad Davidson, and now they'll have some more ground to make up. Here's John Gaines for Hoinke.
Well, in all sports, there's a little thing called momentum, and momentum seems to me to have shifted quite easily to identify that. It's shifted to the Vice team, the Vice Grips team, and this team right now is all pumped up after that strike that we had as we bowled through. The whole team was up off the bench the first time in the match that they've gotten up, greet the guy coming off the approach. They feel they're in it. Tony Franklin, right there talking to Damon Cardwell, affirmed that. He said, look, we're still in this. A couple of strikes, we got a chance to win this match. And you know, I don't know if either one of them, the way they're going, wants to bowl against Ebonite, but right now, Ebonite would look at this and lick their chops, I think.
Well, obviously, the left lane a lot more pesky than the right in this particular match.
Pesky. You know, I've never heard a bowler use that description of a lane condition. Pesky lane condition. I like that. I'm going to remember that.
All right. Might start a new phrase.
That's right. All right. Big shot here. David Smith up on the right-hand lane needs to strike. Made a good shot.
Oh, 2 in a row. Got
Now you see what I'm talking about. Look at this team. They're up off the bench. Remember the first game? They were smiling like, well, this is over. We haven't got a chance. All of a sudden, it's their game to win, their match to win right now.
Pressure is definitely shifted. Squarely on the shoulders now of Steve Kloempken and the Hoinke Classic team.
Well, they've got 2 of the best finishing men in the business as far as amateur players are concerned. This young man and, of course, Chris Barnes, bowling anchor. Trouble. Oh,
almost got the 10.
Well, we got brand new Brunswick pins down there, and they got a little bit of a flat bottom, and that's why they have that flat bottom. So you don't hit them, you don't get them. Spares are important. Every shot is key. Now, cross lane, switches bowling balls, going to something that'll go a little bit straighter here.
Well, you're turned out to be quite a prophet here with that 66-pin lead after game 1. Everybody thought it was in the bag for Hoinke Classic. Now they're sweating things out.
Look out.
He pulled it, but just barely got it.
Well, there again, now when the bowler switches bowling balls, many times he'll have trouble releasing the ball cleanly, and that's what happened there to Steve. He couldn't get his thumb out of that ball. Almost missed a spare. That would have been disastrous for his team. Anything can happen in these matches, and usually does. And, of course, right here, a strike. And this match is basically even going into the 10th frame.
Scott Southwick going for the turkey. Got it. Oh, boy. We have got a match now.
There's your emotion, and I just love to see that. This is a team sport, folks, and you see it happening at its best in the World Team Challenge.
Lead is just 12 now for Hoinke Classic going into the 10th frame.
Well, the pressure's on, and it's on a guy that's been in this situation many times in the past. Only 23 years old, but still one of the best amateur bowlers in the country. He's proven that in the past, and he's been very good in clutch situations, but he's on a very tough lane. Let's see how Chris Barnes handles not only the pressure, but the trouble of making a good shot on the left-hand lane.
Remember, he had a split on this lane his last time out. Ooh, got a little bit of a break. Came up high on the head pin. Got him to go.
Got up high in the head pin, but I'll tell you, in the situation he was in and the pressure he was feeling, he made a tremendous shot there. He got the ball, he kept it in play, didn't let it get away from him, moved a little deeper toward the middle of the lane, upped his speed a little bit, tried to go more end over end with the roll, and I doubt if he'll throw this one any easier. If anything, he'll probably throw it even harder, try to keep the ball in the pocket area. Well, here we go, 10th frame. How many times have we seen it? It's almost tournament after tournament that we see this happen. It comes down to the 10th frame almost every match, and that's what makes the Baker system such a wonderful, wonderful, challenging system to play under. Chris Barnes for the spare. Comes down to the anchorman. Tony Franklin is the man of the hour.
Tony Franklin, who needs 2 strikes. And Vice Grips can come all the way back from a 66-pin deficit. Tried to get lucky, but left the 5-pin, and that will do it.
Well, you can see a lot of disappointment and a lot of hope riding on that shot, but the team is disappointed, and rightfully so. This lane condition is a difficult condition. It's a mentally draining format, so no matter who wins or who loses, it's a tough way to go.
So Hoinke Classic hangs on, and they win this first match. They'll take on Ebonite. When we come back in a moment, we'll take you around the bowling world. We're at Don Carter All-Star Lanes in Fort Worth, Texas.
Let's face it.
World, brought to you by Turbo 2-in-1. Has been dominant throughout. They, of course, are our defending World Team Challenge national champions. Billy Murphy will begin things for Ebonite, who are so dominant they have led wire to wire so far and were 8-1 in match play competition. The one match they lost to Hoinke Classic. That one stuck. A bit fortunate perhaps to get it to cross over and leave just the 610. Let's take a look at the Contour Power Grip starting lineup Brought to you by the pioneers of the finger grip industry. More pros choose Contour Power Grips, and you should too. It'll be the Murphy brothers and Swanson, Waliczek, and Fleming round out things for Ebonite. So a spare to begin things for Ebonite. Remember, in our earlier match, it was the left lane that caused these bowlers more. Classic. Hoinky Classic just 5-4 in match play.
Well, young Mr. Murphy just got ahead of himself there. Chad let that one get off his hand a little bit different than he'd like to normally, and he actually was out of time, got there and was losing his balance at the foul line. Tough spare, 1-2-4-8. Idea here is to get the ball on the left side of the head pin. The ball will do all the work for you. It'll take out the 2, the 4, and the 8.
Oh, got a little bit lucky there.
Well, you don't lead tournaments by 500 pins without a little luck once in a while, but let me tell you what, these guys can play. There's another look at that shot. You see the head pin go straight back, and the 2 pin does all the work. Comes off the wall, kicks out the 4 and the 8. Now, you won't see anybody else playing that angle, I'll guarantee you. He's going to be the only guy out there, and anybody that can go that straight deserves all the help he can get on the back end, and that ball is doing the job for him.
Now up for Ebonite, Sean Swanson. They don't waste any time.
Well, Sean's one, you might say, the real twister, or guy that hooks it the most for this Nitro Art team. And he's the guy that can get you in the most trouble also. That's why he's bowling in 3rd position, because he's kind of out of the way there, and he can relax and just get up there and hopefully get a couple of marks for you, or maybe even a couple of strikes. But if he gets hot, he can strike forever. But they want him not in a position where he could really hurt the team. So he's bowling 3rd.
Interestingly, Sean Swanson won the '94 Super Hoinky, earning $100,000 for that. And here he is going up against Hoinky. B&D Pro Shop out of Kenner, Louisiana. In 9th place out of Houston, Del Mar Lanes. Team Columbia 2 out of San Antonio. They finished 8th, and in 7th. Team Scheme out of San Antonio. Well, right now the early lead for Hoinky. They have that 6-pin lead, and we'll come back to Don Carter All-Star Lanes in a moment. Getting the championship here, Lonnie Waliczek to bowl for Ebonite.
Lonnie, a very deliberate player, takes his time, sets everything well, and very determined. Look at his eyes. Concentration level is unbelievable.
He knew that one was high the minute he let it go.
Well, he tried to force something to happen there. Anytime they get the ball out to the right on lane 51, it doesn't come back. It stays there. There's an out of bounds, and it's a huge out of bounds. So the margin of error on that lane is very minimal. And what he's trying to do is force the ball down the lane from an inside angle, not give it a chance to skid out, and it hooked a little sooner than he thought it would. Tough spare here because it could slide by. The 2-4.
As you mentioned, these bowlers familiar with each other. Waliczek, a member of that Wichita State bowling team, like Chris Barnes. All-Star Lanes, we thank her and her staff for their wonderful hospitality while we were here in Fort Worth.
Here's a look at Paul Fleming, the first time on the lanes, and that's a balk. Something didn't feel right in his game there, and he did the smart thing. He stopped, and he's going to start over again. And a lot of players would have gone ahead with the shot and probably had a disastrous result. Something bothered Paul, whether it was in his own physical makeup or something out in front of him, and he was smart to come back and start over and get all set.
Boy, it's so tough for Fleming to start over again, and obviously the right choice. I don't know how you do that. Pull a ball back like that.
Well, you can hurt yourself, but these guys, they have bowling muscles, you might say. They're conditioned for the. Anyway, Paul Fleming made the best shot we've seen in a long time in the left-hand lane.
Yeah.
Real good shot, left only the 10-pin. And this guy, again, one of the best amateurs the country has produced in a number of years. He was a 1992 United States amateur champion. He was a member of 1992 Team USA, which represented our country in foreign matches, and he's a very experienced player.
And he's got to be happy. He's from the
bowling on the most difficult of the lanes, the 2 lanes by far. It's been demonstrated in our opening match when Hoinky struggled on that lane in the second game, the deciding game of that match.
Crossing over Billy Murphy for the strike.
Well, every frame they fill is just that much closer to victory, you might.
Out of Plano, Texas, our 5th place qualifier, Bricardo's or Bricard's Donuts out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And our 4th place finisher, Boulevard Bowl. Hoinke beat them out to get into 3rd place in the very last match in qualifying. Hoinke Classic's lead is just 1 now, and we'll come back to this first game of our championship match in a moment. Through a couple of frames, and we find that Ebonite now has taken a 5-pin lead despite an open frame in the 8th. Ebonite bowling on the more difficult left lane here in the opening game of this 2-game championship match. And now bowling for Ebonite, Lonnie Waliczek.
Lonnie was high on a head pin in his first shot in this game. Let's see if he's made an adjustment by moving left. He is a little deeper, a little more room.
And the result.
And there's the result. This is why this team led this tournament by 400 or 500 pins. I mean, they are just done. A couple of strikes here for Ebonite would give them the lead going into the second game.
Oh, he got the 2-pin to trip out of there. That's a double then for Ebonite.
Here's another look at it. Watch what the head pin can do for you. That's the pin in the front. It'll go to the wall, come back, slide the 4 into the 5, which then knocks it into the 2-pin, trips it forward. And the reaction, and Paul's a very happy young man. Of course, the team isn't feeling too bad about it either.
I should say so. And leaving the 7.
Well, that's what bowling's all about. You make a kind of a weak shot, get away with it, trip the 2-pin forward, make a much better shot, which he would strike on that hit probably 19 out of 20 times, and he leaves the 7-pin. But a very good beginning for the Ebonite team. They will be in that 196, 195 category for an opening game, and just are 196.
They got that 7-pin. They almost threw it in the channel, but did get the 7, and have a 196 opening on a very difficult left lane. A 190 possible for Hoinke.
And they need every pin they can get. Chris Barnes is just the guy to do it, but he can't afford to make any mistakes. Anything at all right now is going to hurt that much more.
Yep, they're going to have a hole to dig out of, Hoinke, as we head into that second.
We're going to take another look at Chris's style as he goes to the foul line. Watch the high arm swing. This is what generates the ball speed. His shoulders will come forward and down a little bit. He gets the ball well up over his head. You can see almost like a Pete Weber if you watch the Pro Tour. And he gets to the foul line and he comes out of it, lifts his head up, and this is what creates sometimes a pull to the left, but he always sets the ball down early, and that can eliminate that pull. And there again, another major error for the Hoinke Classic team as they open the 10th frame and now have dug themselves, as you so aptly put it, Dave, a huge hole.
Well, it's almost a Grand Canyon as they move over to the left lane, looking up at that scoreboard, finding themselves down 30. Trying to clear lanes in Fort Worth. Remember, they were a national champion a year ago, and they are in good shape right now. Heading over to the right.
Ebonite bowled extremely well with a 196 opening game on lane 51. If they get lined up and bowl well on lane 52, as capable as they are, this match could be well over with already.
Now Billy Murphy through the head pin and leaving the 3-6.
Not an easy spare for a right-hander. A lot of ways to miss it, only a couple ways to make it. The ideal way to make it is to get the ball between, of course, both pins and have it hit them both. But sometimes you can slide by. Be careful on this shot. Get it going too far right. Perfect.
All right, Adam and hard.